The year is 1099 AD. The place is the city of Valencia on the eastern coast of Spain. For 3 years, this rich Muslim city has been under the control of Rodrigo Díaz de Vivar, a Castilian knight known to Christians as El-Cid, from the Arabic Al-Sayyid, meaning the Lord. To the Muslims who fear him, he is El Campeador, the master of the battlefield. He has fought for Christian kings and Muslim emirs. He has been exiled, betrayed, and stripped of his lands. He has fought his way back from nothing. He has conquered Valencia not for king or country, but for himself. Now he lies dying. He is 56 years old. His body, worn out by decades of war, is failing. His enemies, the Almoravid Muslims from North Africa, have surrounded Valencia with a massive army. They know El-Cid is sick. They are waiting for him to die. When he dies, they will storm the city, slaughter his followers, and erase his legacy. El-Cid's wife, Jimena, weeps at his bedside. His knights stand in silence. But El-Cid is not finished. He calls his men close. He gives them his final orders. He tells them to armor his corpse, to strap his body upright on his white war horse, Babieca, to tie his sword, Tizona, to his dead hand. He tells them to open the gates of Valencia at dawn and to charge. His body will lead the charge. His dead heart will strike terror into the living. And the Almoravids, who have never seen such a thing, will flee. El-Cid dies. His men obey. They dress him in his finest armor, polish his helmet, paint his face so that it looks alive. They lift his stiff body onto Babieca, tie his legs to the stirrups, tie his sword hand to the hilt. Then they wait for dawn. When the sun rises, the gates of Valencia swing open. A single horseman rides out, followed by a column of knights. The horseman is El-Cid. His body sways slightly in the saddle, but from a distance he looks alive. The sun glints off his helmet. His sword gleams. The Almoravids, watching from their camp, freeze. They had heard El-Cid was dead. But there he is, leading a charge. Panic spreads through their ranks. The knights charge. The Almoravids break and flee. The siege of Valencia is lifted. El-Cid has won his last battle. He has won after death. This is the story of El-Cid, the warrior who became a legend, the knight who never surrendered, the man whose victory beyond the grave made him Spain's greatest national hero. To understand El-Cid, you must first understand the world he lived in. Spain in the 11th century was not a single kingdom. It was a patchwork of Christian kingdoms in the north, Castile, Leon, Aragon, Navarre, and Muslim Taifa kingdoms in the south, Seville, Zaragoza, Toledo, Granada. Christians and Muslims fought each other, but they also allied with each other. Knights fought for whoever paid them. Mercenaries were common. Borders shifted constantly. Into this chaos, Rodrigo Díaz was born around 1043 in Vivar, a small village near Burgos in the Kingdom of Castile. He was the son of a minor noble, a second son who would inherit nothing. He had to make his own way. He did so by becoming a knight in the service of Prince Sancho of Castile. When Sancho became king, Rodrigo became his chief commander. He won battles, crushed rebellions, and became famous. But Sancho died young, assassinated in 1072. His brother, Alfonso, took the throne. Alfonso did not trust Rodrigo, who had been loyal to Sancho. In 1081, Alfonso exiled him. Rodrigo left Castile with a small band of loyal knights. He had no land, no title, no future. He was 40 years old. Most men would have given up, Rodrigo Díaz went to Zaragoza, a Muslim kingdom in eastern Spain. Its emir al-Muqtadir hired him as a mercenary. For the next decade, Rodrigo fought for Muslim rulers against Christian kings, and for Christian kings against Muslim rulers. He fought for whoever paid him, but he fought with honor. He never broke a contract. He never betrayed an employer. He became known as El-Cid, the Lord, a title of respect from his Muslim allies. He also became known as El Campeador, the master of the battlefield, for his skill in single combat. He was not a saint, he was a warrior. He killed for money, he sacked cities, he burned villages. But he was also loyal, generous, and fiercely protective of his men. He was the perfect medieval mercenary, and he was about to become a king. In 1090, El-Cid captured the city of Valencia, one of the richest ports on the Mediterranean. He had not been sent by any king, he had taken it for himself. He became the ruler of a small kingdom with his own court, his own army, and his own laws. Christians and Muslims lived under his rule. He did not force conversions. He did not destroy mosques. He collected taxes, dispensed justice, and fought off enemies. For 3 years he ruled Valencia. But the Almoravids, a fanatical Muslim dynasty from North Africa, had conquered most of Muslim Spain. They saw El-Cid as an infidel occupying Muslim land. In 1099, they marched on Valencia with a massive army. El-Cid, now in his 50s, was exhausted. He had fought all his life. His body was broken. He fell ill. He knew he would not recover. He called his wife Jimena and his closest knights. He gave them the orders that would become legend. And then he died. But his story did not end with his death. Jimena and the knights followed his instructions. They armored his body, mounted him on Babieca, and led the charge. The Almoravids fled. Valencia was saved. For 2 more years, Jimena held the city. But without El-Cid, the defense could not last. In 1101, with the Almoravids returning, Jimena abandoned Valencia. She took El-Cid's body with her. She buried him in the monastery of San Pedro de Cardeña near Burgos. His tomb became a shrine. Within a generation, El-Cid had become a legend. Poets sang of his deeds. Stories grew around his name. He became the hero of the Cantar de Mio Cid, the Song of My Cid, the greatest epic poem of medieval Spain. The real El-Cid was a mercenary. The legendary El-Cid was a champion of Christianity, a loyal vassal, a noble knight. The legend swallowed the man, and the legend, unlike the man, was immortal. Now let us separate the historical El-Cid from the legend. The historical El-Cid did not fight only Muslims. He fought for Muslims as often as he fought against them. He was not a crusader in the modern sense. The word crusade was not even used in his time. He was a pragmatist. He fought for survival, for wealth, for honor. The legendary El-Cid is a national hero, the embodiment of Spanish courage and Christian faith. The historical El-Cid was a complex, flawed, brilliant soldier. The historical El-Cid did not have 2 magical swords, Tizona and Colada, that could terrify enemies without being drawn. He had good swords, well made, but they were not magical. The historical El-Cid did not ride a horse named Babieca that could outrun the wind. He rode a good war horse, trained for battle, but not supernatural. The historical El-Cid did not win a battle after death. The story of his corpse leading a charge is almost certainly a legend, a story added decades later to make him seem invincible. But the legend is powerful. It is powerful because it tells us what people wanted to believe, that a good man, a brave man, a loyal man cannot be stopped even by death, that courage is stronger than mortality, that the righteous will triumph, if not in life, then beyond it. The legend of El-Cid's last ride is not history, it is poetry. But poetry sometimes is truer than history. So what can we learn from El-Cid? First, that reputation is a weapon. El-Cid's name alone was enough to make enemies flee. He spent decades building that reputation, through victories, through generosity to his followers, through keeping his word. When he died, his name was still powerful enough to win a battle. Reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. El-Cid built his carefully, and it outlived him. Second, that loyalty matters more than ideology. El-Cid fought for Christians and Muslims alike. He did not care about their religion. He cared about whether they kept their promises. He was loyal to his employers, and they were loyal to him. In a world of shifting alliances, his loyalty was his currency. Third, that exile is not the end. El-Cid was exiled twice, first from Castile, then from his own conquests. He did not give up. He went to Zaragoza, fought for a Muslim emir, rebuilt his army, and conquered his own kingdom. Exile is not defeat. It is a different battlefield. Fourth, that a good death can make you immortal. El-Cid died in his bed, not a heroic death in battle. But his followers turned his death into a legend. The story of his last ride made him a hero for the ages. A good death is not about how you die, it is about how you are remembered. Fifth, that the line between history and legend is thin. The real El-Cid was a mercenary. The legendary El-Cid is a saint. Both versions have survived because both versions serve a purpose. History tells us what happened. Legend tells us what we wish had happened. El-Cid belongs to both. Today, you can visit El-Cid's tomb in the Burgos Cathedral. His bones were moved several times, once from San Pedro de Cardeña, once from a different location. They were almost lost during the Spanish Civil War, but they are there now in a simple stone sarcophagus under a plaque that reads, Rodrigo Díaz de Vivar, called El-Cid Campeador. You can visit the statue of El-Cid on horseback in Burgos, sword raised, facing the horizon. You can visit Valencia, still a great city, though the walls El-Cid defended are long gone. You can read the Canta de Mio Cid, the epic poem that turned a mercenary into a national hero, and you can wonder, what would El-Cid think of his legend? He was a practical man. He might have laughed, he might have been annoyed, he might have said, I did not do those things, but I wish I had. That is the nature of legend. It is not a lie, it is a dream. And El-Cid's dream of a warrior who never gives up, who never surrenders, who wins even after death, is a dream that Spain still dreams, and that the world still dreams. Because every person in their heart wants to believe that death is not the end, that something of us survives, that we can still ride, still fight, still win. El-Cid's last ride is a story about a dead man winning a battle, but it is also a story about hope, about legacy, about the power of a name to terrify the living long after the heart has stopped beating. That is the legend of El-Cid, the warrior who won after death, the knight who never stayed down, the man who taught us that a good reputation is the only immortality we need, and that sometimes the best way to win a battle is to refuse to stop fighting, even when you are already gone. The Almoravids who fled from El-Cid's corpse did not know they were fleeing from a dead man. They saw a knight on a white horse, sword raised, armor gleaming. They saw El-Cid. They ran. And they were right to run, because even dead, El-Cid was more dangerous than most living men. That is the power of a legend. That is the power of a warrior who never accepted defeat. That is El-Cid, the lord, the master of the battlefield, the man who conquered Valencia, who fought for Christians and Muslims, who died in his bed and won his greatest victory after death. Victory beyond the grave. It sounds impossible. It sounds like magic. But legends are not bound by the laws of the living. El-Cid rode. El-Cid fought. El-Cid won. And 2,000 years from now, if the world still remembers heroes, they will still remember his name. El-Cid, Campeador, the warrior who would not die, the last ride that never ended. Because in the hearts of those who love courage, El-Cid is still riding, still charging, still winning, and death, like the Almoravids, still flees before him. That is the story of El-Cid's last ride, victory beyond the grave, and a legend that will never, ever fall.